Hanayama vs Sawpaing, the fight no one expected in the Baki vs Kengan Ashura crossover film. However, it makes a lot of sense, and here's why. Hanayama is one of the most popular Baki characters, getting two of his own side manga dedicated to his story and what he's been up to throughout the Baki world, and is a character who represents Baki as a series in many ways. He's the resident Yakuza of the story, who could very well be Baki Hanma's closest friend, the embodiment of a Chad who does not block and does not have a specific martial art. He pretty much just throws these big wind-up punches and hopes they land, which they often do as they low-key have a fear hacks element put into them. A lot of the characters facing Hanayama be like, bro, what's he trying to do? And then bang, they're absolutely destroyed. He was also born with insane grip strength and overall power when it comes to strength and endurance, a built different mad lad, which is highlighted by Yudro himself, comparing Hanayama to the ogre, which is pretty crazy. So in short, he represents the Baki universe nicely, and apart from all of that, he is technically my second favorite character in all of Baki. Now, Sawpaing as a fighter for Kengan is the controversial choice in this crossover, but honestly, welcome. He is a fighter who represents the Kengan underground fights in a major way. His brother was a fighter who died in the matches, likewise for his father, someone who went by the name Paing, and we got to see in the crossover manga chapter between Kengan and Baki, I believe released around 2 years ago now. This was created by the Kengan authors for the anniversary of the Baki manga, pretty much a homage chapter, and could be argued as a key moment that led into the creation of this film as a whole, which is pretty cool. The chapter was set in the past of both universes, before the birth of Baki and the whole Kengan Ashura story. It focuses on us seeing a young Doppo Orochi learn about the Kengan matches and actually take place in one. He first learns about Kuroki wanting to fight him, which is pretty cool, but the chosen opponent was Paing, who had this insane aura and was able to stun Doppo with his presence alone. Additionally, gotta admire the sick art. Orochi realized that Paing is indeed strong, wanting to fight him, but first they required a flex off. Unfortunately, we didn't really get to see the whole fight, just it being implied that they're relative to one another at this stage, with all of this pretty much being used to highlight Sawpaing's legacy in the Kengan story as now a current day Kengan fighter, someone who's quite unique in the Kengan story and does have a dedicated fandom. Additionally, the crossover film has a little issue. The Kengan Ashura anime has not been complete, and many characters including Sawpaing get much stronger in the sequel manga Kengan Omega. However, so far in the Kengan Ashura anime, we have received all of Sawpaing's fights. Him against Karo the Fisherman, which he defeated, and then against Ray where he faced defeat. This of course being in the most recent season, with the next one coming out in August, allowing us to see all the relevant techniques and abilities of Sawpaing, which of course will most likely be appearing in the film with no limitations, making him as a character who's going to be written in the story more complete compared to someone else like Wakatsuki, who I would prefer as the matchup for Hanayama, but still has more fights in the Kengan Ashura anime with more to reveal that many people probably don't know about. Now for Hanayama, he doesn't really get any new moves in later arcs of the Baki story. He of course does get stronger and has better showings, especially in the Masashi arc, the next arc which is actually in the works on by the same studio releasing this film and the previous Baki seasons, Baki Dao's anime adaptation. But with all this considered, the film is a pretty complete version of Hanayama, with all of his main abilities and everything else that makes him great being available, so that's pretty cool. Which leads into the next thing we need to break down, the martial art and fighting style of both fighters. Now, thanks to you mad lads, I'm now partnered with GamerSupps to provide you with a 10% discount code for all these goods that you fellow gym grinders may enjoy, or anyone who wants some useful products while supporting me directly. You can find the link in the description. Now back to the video. Sawpaing is the resident left-way practitioner of the Kengan universe, a martial art from this country which Sawpaing's from as well, that in the real world is considered potentially the most brutal combat sport, mostly due to its involvement of headbutts in the martial art, an aspect of left-way which Sawpaing pretty much specializes in due to the training he's been doing since he was born, resulting in him to be considered as the one with the strongest skull in humanity, or within the Kengan universe. On top of that, his whole body is pretty much partial trained to an extreme degree, making him naturally one of the most durable characters in the series, resulting in Sawpaing to be incredibly hard to knock out as a fighter. Alongside his bones being so strong, he can be regarded as a built different character, whose natural attacking power is way above most of the other fighters, once again due to this built different nature he was able to gain through all these years of training. With him using this as pretty much a brawling type fighter, he tanks most attacks from his opponent and then lands his own ones back, hoping he can drop them before they drop him, which he mostly succeeds at, forcing other fighters to go in with more of a strategy. But as we know, he's facing Hanayama, that definitely won't be the case. On top of all of that, he also has his ultimate technique known as the Hammer of Burma, which is pretty much a crazy headbutt that could potentially be a one-shot move on most of the fighters in the Kengan universe, allowing Sawpaing to have one of the most impressive feats of power in the entire story when you look at the calculations done for it. Additionally, we already got to see in the trailer him using the Hammer of Burma, a very similar moment to when he used it on Rei we get to see here. The comparison of art style definitely makes Sawpaing look even more badass in the Baki style now. And that's pretty much the simplified version of Sawpaing's fighting style. A crazy brawler going to be landing monstrous punches and kicks, and then potentially his headbutt as well. Now for Hanayama. Once again, very similar, someone who doesn't dodge attacks, doesn't block any, just tanks them like an absolute beast. If you look at both fights of Sawpaing and Hanayama, it's clear that Sawpaing is definitely more of a martial artist. He does, if needed, block attacks, dodge them, etc., but not really always. Hanayama just doesn't care, he'll try and tank anything that comes at him, even if it's a sword from Masashi Miyamoto. He does have one other major ability or aspect of his fighting style, that being his insane grip strength, which if he gets a hold of Sawpaing will definitely do some major damage. In the early days of the Baki world, he did this thing known as the vice grip, which pretty much resulted in his opponent's body part to blow up to a degree, making it useless for the remainder of the fight. Hanayama hasn't used this technique in quite some time. In recent, when looking at the manga, he does use his grip strength to overpower the likes of Masashi, and then pretty much his brute power in his clash against Pickle, highlighting his monstrous strength as well. And then as we've seen in pretty much all of his fights, Hanayama is someone who pretty much does not give up and tanks pretty much everything chucked his way until he's knocked out. And even if he is knocked out, it pretty much occurs with him still standing on his feet, which is pretty crazy. Now coming back to the trailer, when you have a close look at it, we get a few clashes shown between Hanayama and Sawpaing, and as expected, it's just them landing blows on one another, pretty much what the entire fight's going to be. Hanayama winds up his one, probably lands on Sawpaing. Sawpaing gets a whole dialogue moment, and the narrator potentially, or some other Kengan characters, going over how his skull is the strongest in the world, tanks a blow, Sawpaing lands a couple of his blows, maybe Hanayama bleeds a little, goes back, but still standing, and they continue that process until one of them eventually drops. I would like to see Hanayama use his grip strength to get an advantage in that way, and it's already been shown that the Hammer of Burma is going to be used. Will Hanayama be able to tank that, or will he potentially need to dodge it or block it in some way? We'll have to wait and see. If I had to make my prediction on who I believe is going to be the winner for this fight, taking note that there's probably only going to be 3 main fights in the series that we've already seen in the trailer, and this is probably going to be the first one. I actually think with all that considered, Sawpaing will be the winner of this. And then in the second fight, it will be Jack. And then for the final, it may be a draw or something along the lines of that. Who knows, but that's what I think. If we're looking at power scaling wise, Sawpaing isn't a weak fighter in the Kenganverse, but he's not really close to the top tiers. especially Shenmue Long, who's very comparable to the Buckyverse. So looking at it like that, Hanayama is much stronger, who could be regarded as close to the top tiers in the Buckyverse now. But if we're being fair, he has been done a little bit dirty in the currently ongoing manga Baki Rahan, so who knows where Hanayama currently stands in regards to the other top tiers. But something for sure is that the writing of this film is going to make them comparable to one another, and I am very excited for this fight. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, consider becoming a mad lad like these guys, the members of the channel. But that's it guys, peace.